Okay, then let's start. And hello, everyone. Today is going to be the last lecture for this course, and in 2 weeks there will be the presentations for your um, projects. So today is the last time I will talk about something, trying to teach you something, and then in 2 weeks we are going to show you, we're going to look at your final projects. First of all, as always, we encourage you to turn on the camera, of course, as much as possible. Of course, you can always ask if you have a question. I wanted to turn on live transcription, but I don't have it right now here. Zoom is sometimes hiding some options when you are screen sharing. But yeah, if someone wants to use live transcription, that's also fine. And as always, I have started recording for this presentation and it will be uploaded later. There will be some listening examples, so we will recommend you to use headphones for them. Before we start, let's talk about this presentation in 2 weeks. So the deadline to send your projects, because we want to be able to look at them in advance, so have some time before to look at them, is the 13th of June. So that's in 1.5 weeks. Please send your final videos to my email address. You can use either YouTube, Vimeo, Google Drive to host them, and we will watch them together in the last lecture. The last lecture, therefore, will also be a little longer than 1 hour. We have 10 groups, so it might be 2 to 2.5 hours. I we want each group to prepare a small presentation of their project for everyone. And please, in this presentation, try to answer the following questions. First, of course, which music and which ensemble you are, which approach did you choose, which challenges did you face, how did you solve them, could you solve them, and what are things that you thought were going well. In this way, we all of us can learn from your experience, and you can also learn from the experience of others. These questions you can either answer freely, or you can prepare a presentation or slides, however you want. Just it would be nice for us to present your project in English, and the whole group should also be present. Um, yeah, for these presentations. Okay, let's go on to talk about the topics for today. We're going to talk about mostly two things. We're going to leave a music recording and go in the space around it, which is doing online music lessons. By the way, I'm a little sick, so I'm sorry if I have to sometimes stop or uh, mute myself. And then afterwards, we will talk about how we can evaluate music recordings. So what are parameters? What can we look for to say, oh, this is a high quality recording or this is a low quality recording? And in the end, we'll just talk about the whole course, what you now have learned, and what are the skills that you gained through this course. Okay, let's start with Zoom for music lessons, and we're going to talk about using Zoom or any other Microsoft Teams or whatever, any other online conferencing tool if you want to teach. That is something that, of course, happened a lot during the pandemic, but still there are many people who are doing this, and they're still teaching online as a music teacher. And so, in order for you to have higher quality lessons, we want to share some tips with you. First, so these are the topics that we're going to talk about. So first, what's a web conference? And of course, what we're doing right now is a web conference. It's kind of a conference call that we had in the olden days where people would dial in together on the phone, but now we have video and it's over the internet. And so two or more people can meet virtually, like we are doing right now. Um, and we could simultaneously see and hear each other. And in this way, we're like almost in the same room together. Excuse me. But of course, while things were a little easier in the older days on the internet, nothing is actually instantaneous, and this is something we really have to think about if we are um, considering to use, for example, Zoom for music teaching. So let's look a little how these setups work. So of course, these companies they try to really be very, very efficient. So they try to reduce the data that is sent. And so, for example, I am person one right now, and you're someone of you is, for example, person two. Um, I am sending my video and my audio to Zoom, and there's a big Zoom server, and person two is doing the same. And what I receive from Zoom, though, is not um, every single camera from you, but what I receive is kind of like a fixed image. So on the Zoom server, it's kind of putting everything together and then sending it to me. And in this way, I am uh, saving data because I can only have one stream of data. And I don't need to wait for all the pictures. So everything is happening in the cloud, and also what I hear will be determined by Zoom. And of course, it's happening for every person, and every person has their own kind of video and audio feed. So all of these online conferencing tools, they have um, certain features that most of them have nowadays. It's like, of course, we can chat, so we not only can talk, but we can write something while I talk. You can also um, chat directly to some people, and we can do also screen sharing. So what I'm showing right now is my screen. Like someone else could also show the screen of their phone. And also we can record everything, of course. There are some collaborative tools like whiteboards. I can share my audio, which of course is important for music. And we can also do something like breakout rooms. So I could now go into smaller subgroups and we could meet in smaller groups and then go back together in a big room. Now, one thing this all of these systems are optimized for, although they're working more and more towards also music, is they're optimized for speech. And so in this way, they are actually not primarily focused on music, which has some side effects because speech, uh, although very complex, is actually much simpler than music. Because of that, the whole 200 people together in one room, and I said that Zoom is trying to really reduce the amount of data. They're applying a lot of algorithms to reduce the data that um, that is being sent to the server and from the server. And this can lead to problems, especially when there's also an unstable internet connection. Most of you have heard them before. And so we can just quickly listen to them one by one. I will send um, the link into the chat and you can have a small listen. And so we will start with, I will have to open the chat. Compression, and this is basically reducing the audio to its essential part. So as I said, music is more complex. With speech, it's good enough if we understand what is being said, and so it's not we don't have to have every frequency perfectly, as long as we can understand what we are talking about. And so compression is doing that, and it's reducing the audio data so much that you're trying to only have basically the minimum amount that is understandable. And so I'm sending you now a link, and you can have a small listen. So what you heard is this high frequency ringing, this sound, this speech would sound a little unnatural, maybe a little metallic. That's the typical sound of compression. Of course, if we talk about music and we would have that, we wouldn't really know what really someone is playing or how they're playing it because it would be very much different than a normal sound. The next thing is the noise gate or echo cancellation. This is something that a lot of these systems provide because we are maybe in noisy environments. Maybe we're at the train station, maybe we're in the train. There's a lot of other co-workers around us, or we're studying and in a music university, so there's other people practicing. So they're trying to figure out what is the speech and what is the noise, and they're cutting out these parts. And so I will also copy this link, and you can have a small listen as well. And so what you were hearing here that because sometimes it's too aggressive or the voice starts too quiet, the beginnings and the endings are being cut out. And this is of course especially bad when we have music. Sometimes the ending is just getting very soft and all of a sudden we have a sudden stop, which we don't want. And sometimes also we have different kind of playing techniques. So for example, more percussive sounds or multiphonics. And I remember myself having a rehearsal, and there were multiphonics, and the Zoom thought it was just noise, and so we didn't hear anything the musicians were playing. And so this is of course kind of makes sense for speech, but it only looks for speech and not for music. Now, if we go into the domain of what happens if we have a bad internet connection, what we can get are dropouts. And dropouts are very similar maybe to the noise gate, the echo cancellation, in that there's like some parts of audio missing. And this is happening because I am sending out my audio. My computer is sending out my audio, but it doesn't know if it arrives at you. So I'm just sending it to Zoom. Zoom is sending it to you. Whether it arrives, I don't know. And because everything is live, there's no way for you to ask, hey, this package, this audio did never arrive. Can you send it again? Because you could try, but it's already over. The audio is gone and it's not being saved. And so this happens often in live situations in Zoom conferencing. If a video is stored on YouTube, I can just ask YouTube, hey, this part of the video didn't arrive yet. Can you send it again? And it's stored on YouTube, and so YouTube can send it again. But because nothing is stored here, everything is live. This is the moment an audio package gets lost in the internet, and this happens actually quite often. Yeah, it's just gone, and then we can have dropouts, and they sound like this. You can have a listen on the link. And lastly, we have time stretching. This sometimes can happen if there are some loss of audio packages and we're kind of waiting for the next ones. So Zoom can sometimes, if there's enough stored, can try to stretch these old audio that he has, and so until the next one arrive. And so we're changing the speed of the recording, but this also has like metallic, unnatural effects, and of course this also is very bad if we are working with music, because then the rhythm is wrong, or the sound becomes weird, or yeah, it just sounds unnatural. And so this is one more example, last example, that you can have a listen at. Okay, so this just for you to know, kind of, if you hear one of these things, what you know how they sound like, what is the issue? Is it because of the internet, or is it something else? The first two we can deal with settings. This latter two we only can deal with by getting better internet connection, or for our other partner to have the better internet connection. Now, there's of course ways we can try to also use hardware to optimize for music. And if you remember from our very first lecture, Um, if you are doing music over Zoom, and right now we're talking, so I actually don't have a external microphone for speech. This is working fine, although it would be also, of course, a little nicer. But if you're using Zoom for music, we recommend you always to use external microphones. For the same reason is you can put them somewhere else, you can set them up more optimal for your playing position, and also you can change the microphone position when you talk versus when you play. Now, again, I was sick today, so I sadly didn't manage to grab one microphone to demonstrate it to you. But basically, you can imagine now I'm talking, and maybe behind me there's a spot where I want to demonstrate you something. So the moment I go here, you will already understand me less. And maybe I will go here because here's my piano. And you can see that the position really has a high impact. Maybe you didn't even hear every word. So if I could just take a microphone with me, like, maybe like the laptop, and I would go here, you would be able to hear me very well. And in this way, when I come here and try to explain to you something about the instrument, I could talk to you. But when I want to show you, I just take the microphone and I just go with it to this position, and I can talk with you there, and you can hear it much better back there. Again, Zoom is trying to kind of get rid of background noises. Um, if you're very advanced, you of course can use multiple microphones and a mixing desk, or like some software setup. But these portable recorders, you can connect them with USB. And if you have a longer USB cable, you just can take them around, or use the professional microphone interface solution, of course. And if you're working on a phone, you can at least use these Zoom microphones. They still provide a better sound than the usual microphone. This, of course, becomes more important if we are going now into the settings. When you use a different microphone, you have to, of course, change the settings in Zoom to choose the correct microphone. So in the audio settings, as a microphone, choose, for example, the Zoom or the Scarlett, whatever you're using, interface, etc. Make sure that the automatically adjust microphone volume is turned off. This is something, again, Zoom is trying for voice to kind of adjust it automatically. And of course, now you have to then take care of the input level yourself. It's like the gain on the Zoom. And so you can either change it here, or if you have professional mic interface or on the Zoom, you can change it with this knob yourself and make sure it's not in the red area when you play. Another option which then enhances your experience is to use original sound for musicians. Um, this kind of gets rid of a lot of the things that we were talking about here. So basically, it gets rid of the compression. It makes more audio and more data for the audio available. So it's not as compressed. And it also you can set to get rid of the noise gate and echo cancellation here. And this should be, of course, off. So you don't have the echo cancellation. And if you use two microphones or if you use a stereo microphone like the Zoom, then you can use stereo audio, but only then. If you only have one microphone and you activate stereo audio, people will hear you from the left. And this is a little annoying for the other people. The original sound, last time I checked, is a little limited on the mobile version of Zoom, but it still exists and it still makes it better. And it really helps because the other side has a much higher quality of sound. And if I now had today the possibility to get a microphone, I would actually show you. Again, sadly, this didn't work out, but I think still you can imagine. Yeah. There's also the option of live performance audio, which is trying to get rid of something that we'll talk later. Um, so I will talk about that later. Now, because you don't have echo cancellation, if you're in a noisy environment, for the other side, of course, they now hear the noise. And so it can be that it's a little more noisy because the background noise is not being cut out anymore. But it's cleaner and more natural. And if you make a quiet ending in the music, it will not be a sudden cut. So you need to, of course, then make sure that you're in a calm environment. So if it's too noisy and you have the possibility, try to change the room. Maybe there's a better position for you to play on the microphone. Maybe get a little closer and also maybe adjust the microphone level so it's not too noisy. Um, so of course this can happen, but it's because we now hear everything that the microphone is picking up. Now, you don't really want to have original sound always on. You can leave it always on, but especially in situations with low data, limited data, it just takes more data. So when you're talking and or discussing something, then you can use just the normal sound, and Zoom offers you in the top left corner if you have original sound enabled here. It's not automatically on. You have to then activate it in the meeting again. And so if it's talking, then original sound can stay off. But when you're singing or playing an instrument, then you can just click here on this button and you can turn original sound on. And in this way, now the other people have a better sound quality from you, your students, for example, or your teachers. Okay, enough about sound. Let's talk a little more about video quality. You can see that same principles apply as always. You should not use a situation where there's a backlight that is bright behind you or a very harsh side light. Usually people want to see your face, so you can use just maybe switch. If there's a window behind you, just try to go to the other side. I happen to be at the window right now, so if this was the situation, you see that I'll actually have this. Wait a second. I have a setting here. Um, yeah, you see that now the background is brighter than me, but I can just literally take my laptop and turn around, and now it looks much better. So it's a simple trick. Use the situation where the window is facing your face, or you can also, of course, do it sideways. It's also not wrong as long as that's like very harsh light. But in this way, it's much better than to be like this because then the background is much dark, much brighter. Sorry for the noise. And people cannot see your face so well. Um, Another thing, of course, is to just put your laptop a little higher. So maybe you see that my viewing angle is actually on the eye level. If I just take my laptop once more, yeah. So this is something that you know that usually it's like a desk level, but I just took a small, oh wait, it's blurred, okay, like a small that I usually use to stand on if I don't reach high enough. And I can just put my laptop on there and voila, it looks much nicer than this typical view from below. Um, so you can just raise your laptop, put it on something, and the viewing angle is much more natural than this typical from below viewing angle. If you have an external webcam, you can also use a long USB cable and move it around. Again, if you have a station that you want to talk at, and then you want to maybe go to your instrument, you can just take this camera with you, and the laptop can stay on the same spot, and you can just go there and show something on your instrument. Lastly, of course, you can use additional lights um, to kind of spice up your light situation. If there's low light, Um, I have a light here now, and in this way, I have now light on my face, and I'm brighter, and the background is not so bright, and so I improved the situation. And you can just, I just use a normal desk light, but you can use, of course, other lights as well. Okay, let's talk about what happens if we want to make music together in Zoom in groups. And so the main issue is that it's not really synchronized. One moment. And the reason for that is that nothing on the internet is instantaneous. So when I talk, the data needs to go to the Zoom server. All these algorithm needs to work on the sound and the video, and then it needs to be sent to you, and it needs to be unpacked and presented, and all the other videos need to be put together. So you actually hear me around 1 second later than I actually talk, which is not a big issue when you talk. Sometimes you have these weird situations on the Zoom conferencing where two people talk together and then, they always start together until someone says, okay, you talk, or both say you talk, and then it goes on for another 20 seconds. But usually it's not a problem with talking. But of course, when music making, 1 second is a big difference. Imagine someone is singing 1 second behind what you're singing. So when I sing, my sound arrives 1 second later at your computer, then you try to be synchronous to that. And then, for example, when you sing, it comes back 1 more second later at my computer. So I will hear you 2 seconds later. If I now will try to adapt to you, I will get slower. I will arrive slower at you. You will be slower, and you will arrive later at me. So this is kind of this spiral loop. So this is why it doesn't really work so well. The other issue is balance. Zoom is automatically trying to mute other people when one person is talking, so it's not like this chaos. Um, this original sound can work against it, and also this other feature that I've hinted at before, this live performance, is also something that's trying to deal with these two things. The synchronization, it will not get better to a certain extent. Um, but yeah, the original sound can at least help with the balance. And of course, you should always use headphones because the moment you use original sound and the sound comes out of your loudspeakers, it goes directly back to your microphone. And so they will get feedback because you don't have the noise cancellation and echo cancellation anymore. So use headphones when you make music, that's very important. And try to use original sound and also maybe this live performance audio feature of Zoom. Now, to go a little further to improve your, if you're teaching yourself, if you want to improve your lessons regularly, um, you can use these kind of tricks to improve the experience. For example, as you know, what we're doing is we're using always the same meeting ID for the lessons. So you can just give your students one link, and this will be the meeting ID, for example, for your teaching. You can always use the same one for that. Um, in this way, you don't always have to write an email. Today, this link, today, this link, this student, this link, this student, this link. You can just stay in your Zoom room and you can make use of the waiting room. So enable the waiting room. If someone shows up a little early, doesn't matter. They will just be in the waiting room. You finish your lesson. You can send the old person out, maybe take 5 minutes to drink something, eat something, and then admit the person to your Zoom room when you're ready. And this way you can just, like a normal room, kind of leave them waiting in front of the door. But yeah, and admit them to your room when you're ready. Of course, something we're also doing all the time is we don't usually play videos or recordings via Zoom. Because of all these things, if I were to show you a video, all these issues would apply to that as well. And because they are on some server, I can just actually give you the link. All of you can watch that alone with the best quality that's for example, YouTube or SoundCloud provides, and then you can discuss it afterwards. If you have bad internet connection and other people might have problems hearing you, a lot of you are doing that already, turn off the video, and so the audio quality improves. And if you're sharing a Wi-Fi, you can ask other people to maybe not stream music or video during the lesson. And of course, what you can also do is make use of all these features that we talked about, the chat, the whiteboard, exactly screen sharing, recording the sessions. So these are all features that the software provides for you, and the good online lesson is making a good use of all these features. Um, so you can really get the best out of the online lesson. Here just another a visual explanation. So you can just, for example, say, use my personal meeting ID when you start the meeting, and you can just share this personal meeting ID, and you can set all the settings there. You can already prepare like a passcode. You can enable the waiting room already. You can set settings like the participants should be muted when they enter, etc., etc. When you share something and it has to do with uh, um, sorry, when you share something, there's different options that you can choose. You can either, for example, share the whole screen. This is sometimes what I do when I need to quickly switch between presentation and software. Then what I do is I just have a second monitor and just share the screen of this monitor. But sometimes if you just want to show something very specific, you can just also share one application like I'm doing right now. And then you can see if I make the window smaller on my screen, it will also, for example, change size on you. And in this way, yeah, you don't see my full computer, but you just only see this application. I will make it bigger again. Um, Another option is if you share something that has sound, don't forget to click the share sound options, something I also always forget. I wish it could be standard. And if it's music, then you should also choose the high fidelity mode stereo so people can also hear left, right. But again, only if you have to share. Best is to just upload it somewhere, but sometimes you just have it on your computer and you want to show it. You cannot like, for example, a music, a recording, you cannot just upload it. So if you show something, then you should make sure to share the sound in a high fidelity mode. Sometimes you can also just share computer audio without sharing the screen, so you don't always need to do that. And again, you can then choose the high quality option there. And something you can also do is you can also, for example, if you have a phone and you want to show something on your phone, or if you want to show a recording on the phone, you can actually connect the iPhone via cable or via AirPlay, and in this way you can show it and screen share it. And of course, because we all know that online lessons are not the same as regular in-person meetings, um, the best way to make use of these online lessons is to actually make them as little synchronous, so all be people together as necessary, and as much also use other tools such as asynchronous teaching. So you can use YouTube, Vimeo, Dropbox, SoundCloud, etc. to upload additional content for your students. There they can watch that content in the best possible quality, and you don't have to you don't have to, for example, um, do that online. Maybe if you want to show them how to play an etude, just record it shortly, upload it, and then they really can listen for the fine difference in timbre that you would not really understand via Zoom. Then you can meet in Zoom and you can kind of do watch sessions and discuss what you wanted to show, but you don't need to do it in Zoom, for example. You can also use other media, like use digital sheet music. When someone sends you a recording of their piece, of the piece they're working on, maybe just make a comment in the music and send it back to them, and then or show that on the screen, and then you can discuss that on Zoom. SoundCloud also, for example, has the feature that you can comment at a specific time of a recording. And this can also help, for example, to write, oh, intonation here, not so good, or tempo here, or forgot the forte. So you can do all these things also on SoundCloud and comment. So there's a lot of different tools that you can use. And the most important thing is that you find the right tool for the job. So not everything has to be done via Zoom, but yeah, find what you need to work with and what's the best solution in your situation. So to conclude this part, so we've talked about how Zoom and other conference systems work. Um, we have talked about the artifacts that they can produce and the problems that can occur. We have talked about how to improve the settings for using it with music and how to adjust our setup. And we have also talked about using other features and platforms such as YouTube, Dropbox, SoundCloud, other media such as sheet music to do asynchronous teaching and complement our online lessons. Do you have any questions so far? Okay, this doesn't seem to be the case. So let's continue and let's talk about talking about music and music recordings. And what we want to do is we want to give you a professional approach in how to evaluate music recordings and basically how to judge a music recording, how good the quality it is. And we will be not going in too much detail about this, but basically the approach is that you have a set of parameters, both for sound and for video, and you will go through these parameters and you will sorry. We'll go through them one by one, and you will kind of make your mind up about each of them. In this way, because music is often very subjective, you can have a more objective approach, and in this way, you can find maybe things which you did not know really how to talk about it. you'll find, ah, I think something is maybe irritating me because of this parameter. So when we talk about sound, the parameters could be the spatial impression, yeah? So how realistic or how fitting is the impression that the performance takes place in an appropriate spatial environment. So, for example, if it's a choir, and then maybe we expect a church more than a small studio. But if it's a pop recording, maybe we don't expect like a church acoustics. So again, it's always the appropriate for the music spatial environment. Similar, the stereo impression, something that we're trying to talk a lot about. You can create a sound image from left to right, and they have a distribution of different sounds. And so you can talk about how is this distribution, how appropriate is it? Yeah, is it maybe inappropriate to have one instrument in the center and all the others on the left? That would be sounding a little unbalanced. So how appropriate is it? How balanced is it? How much sense does it make? Um, if we go more into now the timbre and the balance aspects and go a little away from the spatial aspects, we have something called transparency. So how many details of the performance can I really hear, or how many of them are covered, and maybe why are they covered? Is it good that they're covered? Is it bad that they're covered? Similar with the balance, is the balance between these different instruments adequate? Does it make sense, or do I feel like one instrument is maybe too present? Um, so again, just is it appropriate for the music? Um, the timbre, of course, do the instruments sound natural? Do they have to sound natural? What is even natural? Again, how appropriate and how accurate is it? And of course, the technical aspects. Do we have noises? Do we have disturbing? Do we have distortion? Do we have other disturbing things that is in the recording which is distracting us? Or if editing errors, weird fade-ins, weird fade-outs, etc. And lastly, what we also always want to give when we go through all of them, sometimes we are too um, too close to these, and so it's always also to give you like a main impression, like okay, but in general, I feel like it's still an appropriate recording. And so you can use these, and for example, for each of them, create a scale from 1 to 10, and then be like, okay, in this parameter, it's a 7. In this parameter, it's an 8. In this parameter, it's a 3. And in the main impression, it's like a 7. And so you have a better overview, and you can talk with your students or with your teachers or with your colleagues better about what you think can be improved in the recording and what you think is already good in the recording. And in this way, always help the music. We can do something similar when we talk about video. And of course, there's the technical aspects and the creative aspects. Um, and of course, there's things like how much resolution, how much detail do we see? Again, appropriate for the music that we have. Is the brightness and the contrast and the lighting appropriate? It doesn't matter, maybe if it's mostly very dark and then we see like one instrument very bright, or the face has very strong shadows, if it's really fitting for the character of the music. But if it's like a very undramatic music, or if you want to see the person talking, then maybe that's distracting and you want to really see the whole face. So how well does this fit? Similar to the color, is the color natural? Is it oversaturated, undersaturated? Then you go to more the geometric aspects. How are the use of perspective, the framing, the field of view, and the spatial relationships between the objects? For example, if you have like two instruments there and no instruments here, you know, it's a geometric composition. Why is it, does it make sense, or is it maybe irritating? Then, of course, always the dramaturgical concept. If is there a storyline, and is the storyline plausible, or maybe there's no storyline, but it still fits if it's just the one camera. Um, it can be, of course, still okay because you can see all the music and the story evolves inside of this one camera. And or if you make cuts, are the cuts plausible? And of course, you also again have the technical integrity, fade-ins, fade-outs, noise, dropouts, etc. And the main impression again. While you go through all of them, you can still give it an additional, just like I feel like still it's a very good video, although maybe these and these issues are not so good. So this is how we can talk about audio, and I'll talk about video, and this is what you can use for your own recordings when you listen to something or when someone sends you something and says, "Hey, do you mind? You made this course, you know something about music recordings. What do you think about this recording?" You can use these parameters in the audio and in the video, and you can just go through them, rate them maybe from 1 to 10, and then you can give them feedback and say, I think this is a great recording, but the balance is not really fitting for me. And also, I feel like that the color is maybe too saturated. So these are the things that you can really talk specifically about and give them good feedback or yourself. And this is also how we will talk about your final recordings in 2 weeks. Do you have any questions to this part?
No, don't have.
No question.
Okay. Then let's go to the third part of today. And this is basically just recapitulating what we did in the past weeks, what we were working on together, and what you have learned because you attended this course. Of course, we were talking about how to make good audio and video recordings. We talked about how to compile multiple recordings by editing the audio. We talked about how you can polish the sound of your recordings with mixing the audio. We were talking about editing the video to tell a story. And we were also talking about how to share your final results in the best quality over the internet. And so now you can make good recordings because you know that microphone and camera placement is crucial, especially in connection with the acoustics of the room and the lighting and how you frame your pictures. You also can make good recordings because you know that you don't need expensive equipment to make great recordings. You know that recording audio and video separately, but simultaneously on a device each will lead to the biggest improvements in sound quality because you will have the perfect sound on the microphones and you will have the perfect picture on the camera. You know that choosing the right gain levels is crucial to avoid distortion and clipping. And also, you know that you should choose the highest quality file format so you can do post-production easily. You also know that if you want to use professional microphones, arranging them as an RTF will always sound good, whether you record a soloist or an ensemble. And you know that stereo recordings sound more natural than mono recordings. You know that you can create a perfect performance with editing by combining several takes and also fix small mistakes. You know that when mixing, you're having a recursive process where you have the basic steps and the advanced steps, and you always go through them in a loop. You know that, of course, never clip audio in the DAW, so never exceed 0 dBFS in Reaper, because sometimes this is only audible after the export. You know that you can use a clap in the recording session to easily synchronize your polished audio and your beautiful video. Oops. And you know that you can create different stories by creating more static or more dynamic versions, and you can choose perspectives um, and change the tempo of edits depending on the music. Of course, you also know that you should not transfer recordings via messengers, but use file sharing services. And if you want to talk about recordings in online conferences, you know that you should share the file instead of sharing your screen. Thank you so much for attending this course. It was a pleasure for me and for Benedict as well. We will see each other in 2 weeks, and we will be very happily awaiting your final project recordings. Until then, please continue working on your virtual ensemble project. The deadline, as a reminder, is the 13th of June. I think it's a Friday. Tomorrow is the last opportunity for you to share your current status, and we can discuss things that might need reworking or things which we think could improve. Again, please make use of these milestones because it's always better to learn while doing and not learn after something you already did. And yeah, until then, I wish you a great time. And if you have any questions, you can, of course, ask them now. And if not, we see each other tomorrow.
I don't have a question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.